Hey guys, welcome back. This is lesson, I guess this is technically lesson 2 of week 8. Today we're going to be talking about simply what it means to proclaim the gospel. Some messages, that we have are just too important to keep to ourselves. Things like we announce births, we announce engagements, promotions, wins. We even talk about restaurant recommendations and where to go eat. And like today, weather warnings. But there's one message that's the message that literally and simply rises above them all. And that's the gospel of Jesus Christ. In the last lesson, lesson 8, we saw that Jesus didn't just suggest that we live quietly with private beliefs. He actually commanded us to go and make disciples. Today in this lesson, we're going to focus on the next logical step. We actually have a message to proclaim, a message that brings life, it brings hope, and it brings eternal salvation. It's an extremely important message. But some people would ask, but why do we have a need to tell people? Why can't we just let someone else do that? Well, I want you to see what Paul says in Romans chapter 10, verse 14 and 15. He says, "How then can they call on him they have not believed in? And how can they believe without hearing about him? And how can they hear without a preacher? And how can they preach unless they are sent? As it is written, it says, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring the good news." What Paul's doing is painting this kind of logical chain here. It's a really powerful picture. People can't call on Jesus for salvation unless they believe in him already. But they can't believe in him unless they've heard the message about him. And they can't hear that message unless somebody speaks up. And that somebody is us. It's me and you. This Great Commission isn't just for preachers and for missionaries and full-time staff members. It's not for podcasters only in our world, but it's for each and every one of us. A pastor friend of mine has this slogan that he reminds his congregation of almost every week. And it's simply, everyone is a minister, or every man a minister, every woman a minister. And it's not to imply that everybody has the gift of teaching or even a calling on their life, to lead from the front of the room. But if only preachers and leaders were commissioned to advance the kingdom, we would be in trouble. Even here at Crossbrand, that would be like 3 to 5, maybe 10 people instead of the 1,000 that meet here every single Sunday. You might be watching this and think, you don't think of yourself as a preacher. But if you've ever told someone about Jesus and what he's done in your life, you're already a preacher. Think about what happened at the tomb. The very first post-resurrection preacher was Mary, because Mary, as went and was told by the resurrected Jesus, I'm going to step over my words here, to go and to tell the disciples that he had risen, the tomb was empty. Peter really brings this home in a really personal way in 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 15. He says, "But in our hearts regard Christ the Lord as holy, ready at any time to give a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that's in you." We are called not just to proclaim a message broadly with broad strokes, but we're to be ready individually at any time to explain why we live and believe the way that we do, why we have hope in this broken world, and why Jesus is worth trusting. Notice that the starting point there in his thing is worship. He says, "In your hearts, regard Christ the Lord as holy." We've talked a lot in this class about the state of our hearts. When Jesus is central in your life, people will notice. And when they do, we don't need to panic or give them some big theological dissertation. We simply need to be prepared to give an honest, humble reason for our hope that comes in us. Next week, we're going to get into the very nuts and bolts, or maybe in 2 weeks, of practically how exactly to do this. I said 2 weeks, I meant later in this lesson. What the world doesn't need are perfect Christians. What it does need are authentic, real ones, real Christians who can speak plainly about the mercy and about the truth of Jesus. I like what Paul said to Timothy in 2 Timothy 4 and verse 2. He says, preach the word. Be ready in season and out of season. And then he tells him what to do. He goes, correct, rebuke, and encourage with great patience and teaching. This one is from Paul's final charge to Timothy, sending him out. And it's a very strong, kind of urgent and timeless message I think he's giving to us as well, to simply preach the word. Not our opinions, but just what is it that Jesus said in his word. We're supposed to be faithful to the message of Jesus and what he's done for us. Again, preaching in this context doesn't necessarily mean standing up in front of the congregation. This is you and I telling our story of what God's done in our lives, our faith story. He says to be ready in season and out of season. And all that simply means is just be proactively ready. Ready for when it feels easy, ready for when it feels awkward. But it means you've planned it, and when you've gotten gospel moments that come up, they don't always come with this advance notice that it's coming. That's why we have to live ready. I have a good friend who always says, don't get ready, be ready. But don't forget the spirit in which we share all this thing, not like the capital S spirit, but the attitude. He says we're told to correct, rebuke, and encourage, but we're to do it with great patience and teaching. I know we've talked about the gift of patience, but what you have to understand is the way that we speak to people matters. We don't beat people around the head and shoulders with the truth. We build them up with the truth. We teach them, not just tell them, but we help them along. We explain to them. We plant seeds, not just drop facts on them and hope that they'll get it. Honestly, I was thinking about this over this week. I've literally never, ever seen anyone, not one person, persuaded to the faith in a debate or an argument or some heated online keyboard warrior exchange, ever. But what I have seen is people come to Jesus because they were loved well, they were treated kindly by somebody close to them in their daily scope. Maybe they just see every day, or maybe just somebody that they encounter, at the store or something. They just saw it lived out. So as we kind of start getting our heads around, all right, we're supposed to do this. What is this message? We already talked about it. It's that simple gospel message about what God has done for us. What we're not here to do is to say, you just need to try harder. You need to be good. You need to be better. You need to clean up your life. More than even just, I just want you to know Jesus loves you. All of that's probably true. I know Jesus loves you is true, but it's absolutely true. But this gospel message that we need to be intentional about proclaiming is that Jesus died for sinners. He died for us, and he died for them, the people that we're talking to. The gospel is he was buried, he rose again, and he ascended to the right hand of God. He's alive, and he's reigning over a kingdom that's presently here right now and available. It's not altogether complete yet, but through him, anyone, no matter their past, can be made new, can be forgiven, and born into God's family. Our message that we have is a message of hope, but our method is that of faithfulness and kindness and patience. And this great commission that he gave us, it's for right now. You don't have to be eloquent. You don't have to have all the answers. You just need to be willing, ready, and I believe you are already spirit empowered to open our mouths and just let the good news out. If you've been completely changed by the gospel, or maybe you're just being changed by the gospel right now, you've got a message. And as one preacher said, the world is dying to hear it. So I don't want you to wait till you feel ready. We're going to step out in obedience, and I want you to trust the Spirit to fill in the gaps. You don't need a pulpit to preach, and you don't need a big platform to proclaim this message. What we have to have is a heart that honors Jesus, and then a mouth that's surrendered and willing to speak and say something. The Bible says, as it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring the good news. So what I want you to do is, after you watch this video, I just want you to go look at there's a couple of reflection questions as usual. I want you to think about an answer, and I want you to start praying right now. And we're going to, in a few lessons, we're going to show you how to start putting together your testimony, your faith story. I want you to start praying now that God would guide you and give you the words that you need, that you have. They're in your voice. It's your story about what God's doing. Just start praying now, so in a couple of lessons, when we get to that, your heart and your mind will be ready to go. I'll see you in the next video.